Hey friends, it's Mari. Welcome back to my channel and happy World Card Making Day. I had so much fun creating this A2 size card that I'm going to be sharing with you today, and I'm going to take you through the entire process. This card was created using the My Favorite Things Christmas Cheer stamp set, and I'm just going to show you that stamp set now. It is one of the stamp sets designed by Stacy Yakala for My Favorite Things. It also has a companion die set. I'm going to be starting off here with an A2 size card panel, and this is some Bristol smooth cardstock. I'm also going to be using this really awesome Honeybee Stamps ink blending palm blending brush, and this is so cool, and you will just be able to see here how lovely the ink blending is with this particular tool. Now I'm going to be blending on some Dusty Concord Seedless Preserves and Milled Lavender Distress Oxide inks, and I'm going to start off here with the Dusty Concord, the darkest color at the top, work towards the Seedless Preserves, and then the Milled Lavender. These are such pretty colors, and I wanted to create just a really pretty purpley winter sky for the little scene card that I'm going to be creating today, and that card that you saw at the beginning of the video. Now between colors, what I do is I just take that brush and I just rub it onto some paper towel just to get the majority of that ink off before I go into the next color, and in that way I don't contaminate the next ink pad with the previous color. And I'm just working on my waffle flower media mat here. This is a silicone mat. What's really nice about that is it cleans up really nicely. It protects your surface, and it also the cardstock kind of sticks to that silicone, and it doesn't move, it doesn't slip around while you're trying to blend that ink on, and that's just a really nice feature of working on this mat. Now you can just see that I am going to be using that milled lavender at the bottom, and that's going to provide the lightest area for this little sky for my little critters to or for the background for my little critters for this card. So I'm just going to go ahead and blend on that milled lavender here. You can just see how that's just going to provide just a really nice soft bottom there for the scene. And I'm just going to go ahead and go through all of the colors again and just blend them so that there's a nice smooth transition between the different colors. Now I did two panels today when I was working on this blending portion of this project, and so I've already got one card panel, card front blended and finished and drying, because Distress Oxide ink does take a little bit of time to dry, especially when you're blending it onto the Bristol smooth cardstock. And I did want to also do a little bit of embossing on this, so I just went ahead and made another panel earlier before this one, and it is going to be all dry and ready to go. It's kind of like on the cooking channel when they create two of the same dishes, right? So that you can see what it's like during the process and then finished. And so I'm just about done here with my blending. I just wanted to finish off with a little bit of that Dusty Concord at the top for the darkest area, and then I'm actually going to just go ahead and blend over the Seedless Preserves again in this same little portion of my blending, just to smooth everything out and get just a really nice blend between those colors. And I just love this color combination. I think it's really, really super pretty. And now I'm going to, now that I'm all finished, I'm going to show you, oh no, I'm going to do a little bit more here of Seedless Preserves and just darken up that center area though. And that actually is, I think this might be one of my favorite Distress Oxide colors, the Seedless Preserves. It's just so pretty. I'm not even really sure if you call it like a purple or a dark pink, but it is just so pretty. And I am going to be flicking some white paint on here to create some snow later on in my process. And that is going to just create sort of like that impression of a snowy winter sky. Now, apparently I'm also going to use a little bit more of the milled lavender here, and you'll just see me going in and finishing that off. But I did want to just make sure that I went over this ample enough time so that it is all a nice, really smooth blend. So I'm just going to go ahead and brush that on and finish that off. And I tell you, this Honeybee Palm Blender is just so awesome. It is such a wonderful blending tool. And the blending surface is actually just quite large on this, so that you can blend up this large panel in a fairly short period of time. So I'm just going to go over that just a little bit more apparently and show you the finished product. And then I'm also going to bring the other panel in here and show you that as well. And that is the one that I'm going to use. And it actually is a little bit lighter now that it's all dried, and just set that off to the side. So now I'm just going to clean that up, and I am going to go ahead and stamp out the images for my card. So I've got the stamps on the window of my misti. I have got a piece of Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock in my mini misti. I'm using some Memento Tuxedo Black Copic friendly ink here. I'm just going to swing the door of my misti over there, get those all inked up, and I actually stamp these out twice just to get a really nice impression, or I just stamped them twice. I re-inked the stamps up and got a really nice impression for my Copic coloring. Now I am going to put some music on for you during the Copic section, so I'll see you back when it's all done. able to see the colors that I used there as I was coloring away. If you were unable to see the lid of the marker, you can just go ahead and pause the video at any point where you need to just verify what color I was using there. Now I've got that really basic Copic coloring all done. What I did was I took a frame die from my stash. This is a really old My Favorite Things die. I'm not even sure if you can still get it, but it's a stitched frame. And I cut that from some Lawn Fawn Pixie Dust cardstock, and it's just got a really nice iridescent sparkle to it. And I've also got that little stamped out snowbank and tree kind of little scene builder portion of my scene here, ready to glue down to the bottom of my distress ink panel. I'm going to glue that down, and I'm also going to glue the frame over top of that, and I'll just trim off that little excess white cardstock that sticks out around the outside edge there, and that will be all finished up. So I'm just going to place that on there nicely and get that laying there, and any of the excess cardstock that is sticking out around the edge, like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and take my scissors and trim that off. I did use the Honeybee Stamps liquid adhesive there, which is really nice because it does allow me to wiggle things around a little bit once I have things in place. And now you can just see I'm going to take my scissors, trim off that excess cardstock, and that will be the finished scene base for the rest of my card. And I've got the little critters already all die cut using the dies there. I've got them all ready to set onto my little scene here, so you can see my little fox. I love Stacy's little fox designs. They're so sweet, and the little bunny's adorable. And there's my little bird with the star in its little beak, and that is the basic placement of my little critters. Now I did want to go ahead and stamp out the sentiment on my card, and I'm going to of course, that is a sentiment from the Christmas cheer stamp set. And I'm going to place the card front back into my misti and just position this. I want to put my critters down there again and just make sure just roughly that I've got my sentiment placed exactly where I want it. I'm going to get that in place and then swing the door of my misti shut and go ahead and pick that up and do some heat embossing of that sentiment on my card front here. So I am going to use some Brutus Monroe Alabaster fine detail embossing powder to emboss this, and I'll just pick that stamp up with the window of my misti here. I just want to make sure, using the grid lines on the misti, just make sure that that sentiment is nice and straight. I will go ahead and get my embossing ink and my embossing powder here so that I can get this all embossed and ready to go. Interestingly enough, when I was working on this today, my heat gun actually died. I have had that heat gun for I don't even know how many years. It's a really old Stampin' Up! Heat tool. I think I've probably had it in my stash. I want to say probably something like at least 20 years. And it definitely has been dropped a few times. And I went to use it today and it was rattling and it just quit. And so, yeah, it's definitely time to get a new heat tool. I did have to use my Ranger heat tool, which is kind of more for mixed media and scrapbooking and art journaling and that kind of thing, but it did work for me, so that's what I'm using. Now I took my EK Success anti-static powder tool here and I just applied some of that to my panel so that my embossing powder is only going to stick to my Lawn Fawn embossing ink. I've got my embossing ink ready to go here. I've stamped it once and I'm just going to go ahead and stamp it again just to make sure I've got a really nice embossed impression here. Now I am going to go ahead and get that Brutus Monroe embossing powder, and I do really like this. It's just a really nice fine detail embossing powder. I'm going to take the card panel out of my misti here and go ahead and apply this embossing powder. Now I am going to just use my little Nuvo spoon to spoon this out onto my card. You just see me grabbing that here and just going to go ahead and place that on and just kind of tap it across that little area, flip it over and get the excess embossing powder off of there before I go ahead and heat it up. So I'm just going to tap it and just make sure and then take the excess off and then heat this up, and that is going to be all finished up. Now I'm going to take a bunch of strips of foam adhesive and I'm going to go ahead and put this all across the back of my card base. And that is just going to make my card base, my card front really nice and smooth. And then it's also going to make it nice and dimensional. That heat tool did warp my card a little bit. And that will happen if you leave the heat on there for too long. And I didn't really have a choice because my other heat tool that gets super hot and works a lot better for embossing died. Remember? So I had to use that other one. So to flatten that out, just a little tip, put that foam adhesive all across the back and it really flattens it out nicely. So now I'm just going to use a little bit of foam adhesive on my little critters. I'm just going to take my little 3L foam adhesive squares and I'm going to pop up each one of the critters on a little bit of that foam adhesive, just giving my card even a little bit more dimension, because as Laura Basson says, dimension is life, and I agree with her. So I wanted to just create a little more dimension on here in that way. And I'm just reaching for another, I'm reaching for the little fence. I'm going to add that on. Add my little bird on here. I think I added some dimensional adhesive to that fence initially and then decided later that I didn't want it to be popped up. Now I'm going to take some different little products here and add some details to my little critters. First of all, I'm going to add some clear Wink of Stella and going to add that all over each one of the critters here. And I love how this just adds some really subtle sparkle, and it's just nice, I think, especially with a Christmas card, to add some sparkle and shine to your card. And just going to add a little bit more here. You'll also see me using my white gel pen and also a little bit of stickles to add a few more details to my card. Now what I really like to do with my white gel pen is I like to add, sometimes I'll add polka dots, which is what I'm adding here to my little bunny's outfit. And I also like to add highlights. So I'll add little highlight areas to different little parts, for example, to the cheeks of my little critters, maybe sometimes to the eyes and sometimes to the very top of their head. And you'll see me doing that to the little fox and the little bird here. And I also wanted to add some of my stardust stickles just to create a little bit of sparkle and shine in a few areas, not too many areas at all, just a few areas here. You're going to see me adding that. And I really like how this adds not only dimension, but also just a little bit of sparkle and shine. I think it just looks really nice when that is added on as a finishing touch. And now I'm just kind of checking out my card and seeing what else. And I've decided that I want to add some snowflakes. So this is some Dina Wakley gloss spray. And you can either tap your little snowflakes on with the applicator itself, or so that's how that looks. And you might get larger droplets with that. And now I'm just taking a much smaller, a tiny little paintbrush, and I'm going to add some smaller splatters. So I've got some larger ones on there now, and now I'm adding some smaller ones. And what I really love about this product is it dries dimensional. And so when you're adding snowflakes, this is really fun, right? Because it does add sort of like a little bit of a raised look to it. And I think that's with snow, that just looks a little bit more realistic. So I'm pretty much finished my card at this point. I'm really loving how it's looking, and I had so much fun playing with these different products today. I really did. I am going to leave a link in the description box below to as many of the products that I can find today for you. If you are looking for links, I do have affiliate links here on my channel, and you're definitely welcome to use those at no cost to you at all. Now, I'm just going to show you a close-up. There is a still shot here as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you as a new subscriber here on my channel. Thanks so much, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.